28, 29, 30. Okay.
Hey, Nick, we got a show to do.
Hang on. Hold on. I'm trying to. I know
Well,
how this works.
But it's the end
What?
of
What?
it's the end of dry January. I get it, but what's with all the bar stuff you got going on there, man?
Dude, we have a competitive bartender on the show tonight. I'm trying to get ready. I'm trying to brush up on my skills, opening. I mean, the bottle curls. I'm trying to be ready because I want to impress this guy.
What do you mean competitive bartender? What are you talking about?
It's the dude from Barstool Sports, Pete. Isn't that competitive bartending?
No. It's Robbie Fox as our guest tonight from Barstool Sports. This is ATGLive. Well, welcome to the all-new ATGLive, your Thursday night home for Star Wars news and conversations and guests and all that stuff. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Pete Fletzer, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friend and co-host, Nick Milkey. Nick, what's going on, buddy?
Well, other than just recently having my dreams crushed of getting into competitive bartending, I guess I'm just going to I'm just going to have to go back to regular drinking like a normal guy. But other than that, I'm doing fantastic, and I'm ready for another fun show.
Well, yeah, I am too. And I say, never give up on your dreams, man. You could still be a competitive bartender. But hey, what's going on in Star Wars this week?
There is a bunch of news. We love when we get into this time of year, certainly ahead of new shows dropping, stuff going into production. There's lots of Star Wars news. We really haven't had to repeat stories over the week, but we've repeated versions of stories. So this week, we've got another story about Daisy Ridley, J.J. Abrams. She's out on a press tour, and, people are asking her Star Wars questions.
Of course, as they should. And there's also something possibly happening at the former Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser.
Yeah, and you know what? Lego, I don't think that's one of your things, but for those that love Lego, there is a 25th anniversary thing going on with Lego and the Phantom Menace. There is also a bunch of new Lego sets that are dropping. So there's a lot of exciting news for, the Star Wars Lego lover out there.
Excellent. And Ewan McGregor says he wants to do a second season of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that's pretty exciting, as well as you said a couple of other things as well.
Yes, and I say yes, please, and thank you to more Obi-Wan Kenobi. So let's make that happen. And we're going to get to all of those stories. We're going to dig into those in depth in just a couple of minutes when we get to our Did You Hear That stories, news stories of the week. But before we get to that, Pete, as we mentioned, briefly in the cold open, we have a great guest tonight. We are excited to keep the ball rolling on ATGLive with new guests, fun guests, people that have something awesome to say about the Star Wars galaxy. Tonight is no exception. We have Robbie Fox from Barstool Sports, and we can't wait to talk to him and dig into some of his thoughts about Star Wars and pop culture and media and creation.
Absolutely, and we're looking forward to getting together with him. But before that, we have to do a little bit of housekeeping. So make sure that if this is your first time hanging out with us, hit that subscribe button. Listen, right now we're at 899 subscribers. If we hit 900 and pop it up a bit, just leave a comment in the chat, and I'm going to give away something over the week if we get over 900. So do leave a comment in the chat and make sure to subscribe. Absolutely subscribe, because we do this every Thursday night at 8 p.m. East, 5 Pacific, and hit the reminder so you can make sure to join us.
No doubt. We don't want anybody to miss out. We covet your YouTube subscriptions. It certainly helps us. And we just want to share the positivity and fun Star Wars conversations with as many people as we can. Speaking of that, we have other ways to do that besides just this show that's on every Thursday night. We also have our social media, which, is a big part of all of our lives. If you want to find us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at ATGcast. Everywhere else, Instagram, Blue Sky, Facebook, we may still have a MySpace page. We'll have to get back to you on that, at the SSW Network. But really, your one-stop shop is the SSWnetwork.com. You go there, you can find all the links to our social media, video clips, articles. Luke Skynet chimes in every now and then with a news article, something fun to check out. And you also can find the link to our merch store. And we are nothing if not shilltastic when it comes to the merch. We come up with dumb t-shirt ideas all the time, stickers, all those kinds of things. And if you order from that site, use the code SHILL15 and you will get 15% off of your order. We want you to, rock proudly SSW Network stuff wherever you go.
Absolutely. And also, while you're on the website, check out the link to our Patreon program. If you click on the Join SSWN button, for as little as $3 a month, you can support not just your favorite creators, but you're also going to get links to when we record live with some of our guests. You're going to get free swag, and you're going to get an even bigger discount than the Shill 15.
For sure. And we have one other thing. If social media wasn't enough, we wanted to bring back this really newfangled technology we've just learned about called the telephone. We want you to leave us a voicemail. I do wish that it was actually like an answering machine that was in Pete's, like on his bedside table, that when the messages came through at 3 in the morning, his wife is like, seriously, who else is calling? We have a voicemail number, and we want you to call and leave us your Star Wars thoughts. If it's something we say in the show this week, here in a few weeks, we're going to get new episodes of Bad Batch, and you're going to finish one and have a great epiphany moment that you want to share, talk about, get us to talk about. So all you have to do is call 504-321-1501. Once again, 504-321-1501. Call that voicemail line, leave us a message, tell us how we're doing. And at the end of the show, when we bring in producer Lloyd for our intercepted transmission segments, we want to play your voicemail. So give us a call. As Miss Cleo once said, call me now.
Call me now. So much going on. We are so excited to be here. We have Robbie Fox from Barstool Sports and My Mom's Basement coming up in just a little bit after we hit the news. But before we get there, we're going to take our first break. And when we come back, we're going to bring you all the headlines of the week. But now, this break, and then more ATG Live. Well, welcome back to ATG Live, your Thursday night hangout for all things Star Wars. Leave us your comments in the chat during the entire show. Lloyd is tasked with not just running videos and bumpers and making sure that we stay on time, but he's also tasked with reading all the stuff that you put in there. So put lots of stuff and make sure to leave a comment. And also, when we're talking to Robbie in just a few minutes, leave us some comments there. We'll bring them up during the show. But Nick, why don't we get to this week's Did You Hear That?
Did you hear that Daisy Ridley was physically ill from the pressure of playing Rey in the sequel trilogy? Daisy Ridley is continuing, as we said, to promote her new film. Sometimes I think about dying, and whether she wants to or not, she is still getting asked Star Wars questions, so she is still talking about Star Wars. Recently, Screen Rant caught up with her, and she shared that in The Force Awakens and in The Rise of Skywalker, J.J. Abrams warned her. He said, Star Wars fans are passionate, and he told her, quote, "You need to understand the scale. This is not a role in a movie. This is a religion for people. It changes things on a level that is inconceivable," end quote. The actress then revealed that the pressure she felt caused her to develop holes in her stomach lining between filming The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. The situation was not helped by a segment of the fan base, we know who they are, that launched waves of toxicity, harassment online against her, as well as other actors in the film. Unfortunately, in the years since the sequel trilogy, this has not improved greatly. In the run-up to Obi-Wan, it was revealed that Lucasfilm themselves, the leadership, warned Moses Ingram to be prepared for the same kinds of treatment that Ridley, John Boyega, Kelly Marie Tran, even Ahmed Best experienced years before. So, Pete, my question is, what does it take for Star Wars to help protect these actors? And also, what does it help to prevent Star Wars from becoming something so radioactive that people don't want to get involved with it in the future?
It's going to be a problem, right? I mean, eventually actors are just going to not want to deal with it. And I don't know. I'm not sure that there's anything that Disney or Lucasfilm really can do other than to just uh, alert them as they did with Moses Ingram. But I think the other piece is they need to get out there and proactively protect, like Ewan McGregor did when
Right.
Moses was being attacked. He got on his he did his own car video and said, racism, if you're a racist, you're not a Star Wars fan, period,
Hmm.
plain and simple. But I also want to touch real briefly, if you don't mind, on JJ
Yeah.
Abrams' comment to Daisy and setting her up. Look, I coach my son's soccer team and basketball team. I would never go to anybody on those teams and say, hey, listen, this is going to be really, really, really important. Do not screw this up because people are watching. Don't screw up. Like, I don't
Hmm.
understand. I understand him trying to set the expectation for her, but and maybe it's the way she related, but I just kind of feel like that is not the kind of coaching somebody needs. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you. And I think there's the opportunity for Lucasfilm to maybe have stepped into some of that. JJ could have gotten with higher ups at Lucasfilm, Kathy Kennedy, other producers on the film. There could have been some ways to maybe attempt to help isolate these younger actors. Daisy was what, 19 when she started Force
Yeah.
Awakens.
Yep.
John Boyega was young, Kelly Marie Tran. Like, there were some things that potentially could have been done. And I'm not placing the fault on Lucasfilm. Ultimately, it's on these, terrible people who want to come after actors and, folks of that nature. But what we have to do is, like I said, look forward, and Star Wars fans stepping up. We talked with Kyle Katarn last week about,
Yep.
People with a platform having the ability to also speak up and stand up for these, actors and show creators, people like that. There is a responsibility, because ultimately when Star Wars fans come together, that's where, the magic is. That's where protection comes from. And we've seen it in every one of these movies we love. Rebellions are built on hope. And when we back each other up, I think about the scene in Rise of Skywalker, which is not everyone's favorite movie, but there are more of us when all those ships show up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's ultimately kind of what it comes down to for me.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think trying to remember what it was like back when Force Awakens first came out. The world was a better place, I think. So that's that. Well, Nick, did you know that Lego is coming up with special sets to commemorate their partnership with Lucasfilm? One of the most important chapters in the history of the Lego company is the partnership with Lucasfilm and the Star Wars brand. It is documented that the timing of that relationship saved the company, which was nearly 70 years old, and it was facing the prospect of going under. And then they launched their first Star Wars sets in 1999. So 2024 marks the 25th anniversary of this relationship, and Lego is celebrating with the announcement of 5 commemorative sets. This includes a smaller scale Millennium Falcon, Tantive 4, and General Grievous's invisible hand. There's also a Tantive 4 hallway diorama where you get to put in a Vader and a stormtrooper and a couple rebel troops. And there is also a mid-scale R2D2, very similar to the UCS version, which came out, but about half the size. Other size sets are planned throughout the year, and the first 5 are available for pre-order now, and they're going to ship in March, which is only a month away. Nick, are you a Lego fan?
I am a Lego fan. I love Lego. I love what they do. The Lego movie itself, the Lego movie sequel, Lego Batman, like, not only just Lego Star Wars, but Lego is such a great product that honestly, there's some magic in their marketing and their ability to create something that appeals to a 52-year-old person and a 7-year-old person. The ability to combine that is special. And for Star Wars, it has added so much levity. It has added so much moments of fun, times where we look at something like the Lego Star Wars video game. When that came out last spring, I played every bit of it. Like, I was so excited to play through every single one of those levels. I wish that I had the Lego sets that I had when I was in college, that I bought when I was very irresponsible with money that didn't belong to me, because I had the X-Wing and I had several sets that sat on top of my computer in my dorm room. And then eventually I got rid of them. And those are those original first runs of those sets that are pretty, worse than pennies these days.
Well, I am a big Lego fan still. I still put them together. It's funny, when my son was born, I thought to myself, well, this is great. I can build Legos with him. He was interested a little bit and then not so much, and it has stuck with me. And somebody had mentioned last week, I think, on the show, when we were talking about the release of the Hasbro figures and the latest Hasbro Pulse, about how Lego really has seemed to nail the market, right? They have the $50, $40, $30 range for the smaller sets, perfect for the kids to play with. And then they have the $800 Millennium Falcon, the $700 AT-AT, the $250 X-Wing, the R2-D2 that I mentioned that I have.
I'm very sad that I do not have that one.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool one. But there's something about Legos that, it's, I guess maybe it's the ship in a bottle kind of thing that our great grandparents did. But there's something, to me, very therapeutic about building a Lego set on a rainy Sunday afternoon, and just, I don't know, I think Lego has nailed it. And as you said, you almost have the What If series of Star Wars coming from the Lego animated stuff. You it's the first time we've ever seen Finn as a Jedi, or a Jedi in training, is in a Lego Star Wars special. So I love what they do with it, and I love the humor they bring to the series. They kind of remind us,
makes it.
Yeah, it reminds us that it's not so heavy. It's not
Star Wars can be fun and funny. And that's it. Just, there's something that you said just a second ago, but it really is the therapeutic nature of putting one of those sets together. And Lego has done that not only with Star Wars, but you see the sets that look like flowers. There's a set that looks like a manual typewriter. Like, that's a very zen adult situation, almost like an adult coloring book, where you can sit down, have a drink, and just, drain away the troubles of the world while you put together, something that helps you focus your mind. Like, it's a neat intersection of maybe fun and mental health.
Absolutely.
Well, did you hear that construction is beginning on the site of the now closed Star Wars Hotel in Disney World, the Galactic Star Cruiser? We probably are the only Star Wars news show, Pete, that's going to cover construction permits in the greater Orlando, Florida area. That said, sharp-eyed fans have taken note that construction permits were requested by a firm in Florida and are for work on what was the immersive Star Wars experience / hotel, the Galactic Star Cruiser. The premium guest experience, which was connected to the Galaxy's Edge Star Wars theme park, offered guests the opportunity to, quote unquote, live in a Star Wars story for 2 days, but it did also come with a price tag upwards of $6,000 for a family of 4. In a cost-cutting measure, Disney closed the doors of the Star Cruiser a little less than 2 years after it opened. At the moment, there is no further information on what is planned for that space or if it will be related to Star Wars. It was never really in the cards for me to get to enjoy the Galactic Star Cruiser in person. We have many good friends of the show who loved it, grieved when it closed. Obviously, with the investment that Disney put into building all of that in the first place, it seems unlikely that it goes away as a Star Wars thing. There might be a next version that is gearing up. So my question to you is, what do you, Pete Fletzer, want to see out of Star Cruiser 2.0?
I wonder, first of all, I hope it's Star Wars related. There's been some murmurings and rumblings that it may be Marvel related, which, it's literally right off the edge of Galaxy's Edge. So it makes sense to do that. I would love to see them make very similar to, I don't know, last time you were at Disney World, but they have affordable themed hotels. You have the Art of Animation. You have some of those. I think if they make it, even if it's a more premium hotel, but keep it completely Star Wars themed. I would love to go to the checkout or the check-in and have R2 be there ready to bring my bags upstairs. I would love to see protocol droids wandering around the lobby of my hotel. I think that's something they could do with it. I think they can make it reasonably priced, not even reasonably priced. Make it a premium hotel if they want to. Make it accessible, though, and it doesn't have to be that immersive experience. I think the other challenge to the immersive experience was that's not for everyone. And I think they hit just about everybody who was going to do it and had the money to do it for 2,000 in less than 2 years, because, there's parents. It's hard to believe there's parents with kids that love Star Wars that aren't nerds themselves, right?
Right.
Or what would have been the case in my case? It would have been me and my son, and my wife and daughter would have been like, "What are we doing here, Dad? This is
Yeah.
awful. This is so." But if we're just staying in Disney World and Vader is in the hallway, that's awesome, and
hmm
I'd like to see that. What about you?
I like that idea. And something when we first learned about Galactic Star Cruiser, right when it opened, we had the writer from Yahoo Travel that
Yep.
came on and talked about, those first experiences. Brian and Holly Fry have been with us multiple times. They've gone live from the Star Cruiser on our show, to hang out and show us all of that. And it's awesome. For me, the 2-day, like fully immersive role playing experience was not necessarily my bag. Like, I want to sit in that Galactic Star Cruiser bar with a drink and just soak up being in Star Wars. So
Yep.
your idea of a hotel, art of animation, Polynesian resort, whatever it is, a Star Wars more hotel version where like, that's where I get to stay. I get to walk. I can spend as little or as much time in it as I want to without feeling like I've got to be rushed to the character dinner and that's for some people, that's their deal. That's just not my deal. So this is a very personal, what do I want? I would love to see them make it a hotel experience. Still has a premium price tag on it. May not be quite as much as that $6,000, but a place where you can soak up Star Wars.
Yep. Connect it to Galaxy's Edge and just make it a Star Wars weekend. I'm all for that.
Yeah.
Hey, did you hear that Ewan McGregor would love to play Obi-Wan Kenobi for a second season? Yes, it's true. Variety caught up with Ewan McGregor recently, and he told them at first he was reluctant to take the role of Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi for the prequels. He said, quote, "I didn't think it was who I was at all." And he went on to talk about the reception of The Phantom Menace. Those of us who lived through it remember that the first one was panned, and we still had to make another two, he says. It was weird to be in a film that was hammered. McGregor, who many now associate more with Kenobi than Sir Alec Guinness himself, said he did enjoy making the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, saying, "I would love to do a second season, but there's no talk of it yet. There is a lot going on at Disney." So there's a lot to unpack in that very short little article in Variety. But Nick, let's start with this. Do you want to see a season 2 of Kenobi?
I 100% want to see a season 2 of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I really enjoyed the first season. We got to watch the first 2 episodes at Celebration together. That is plugged into some of my core Star Wars memories at this point, is having that experience, not only with you, but so many of our friends who were there. But I really loved that show. And certainly there was a lot of nostalgia trip in it because it felt a lot like OT Star Wars, which is certainly one of our things. And I loved, Ewan McGregor and the prequels. For as much as I was not a prequel guy early on, his part of it, I really did always like. So to me, he is Obi-Wan Kenobi. I love Alec Guinness, but he's embodied much more of that character. And I think he has a love for it the same way he and Hayden Christensen have both talked about the love they have felt in the later years after the prequel trilogy hate died down. I think it's a character that he loves as well. And when you have an actor who loves a character they've played, it changes the level of their game when they play that character, when you bring them back. Sometimes you mail it in. If you don't like it, you're not feeling it. Ewan McGregor's not one of those guys. He loves this character, and I think he would do great with some continued stories in that same in-between, era before we get to old episode 4 Obi-Wan.
You brought up a great point that he brought up as well, and that Star Wars needs to or the prequels have moved beyond the hate, but I think it's really important and really interesting to watch and remember that the prequel hate was real. Like, it was not well received at all. I mean, I've talked about it 1,000 times, being at the premiere of The Phantom Menace in New York City, and the celebrity guests kind of like, I don't think I like that, but I need to be polite about it. But I it's great to see them getting their appreciation now, so many years later. Second season of Obi-Wan, I'm going to take the contrary side and be like, honestly, I don't know that we need it. I actually didn't know if we needed Obi-Wan season 1. I thought it was a fun show. It's interesting, the nostalgia notes it played for a lot of the prequel kids. I call them kids because they were kids when it came out. But I don't know. I mean, I thought it was cool, but I enjoyed it, and for the same reasons you said, being at Star Wars Celebration when it came out, standing there in the room with you and Hayden and others, it was
And
cool.
your dad and your son. I mean, that added to that certainly for you.
100%. But I'll tell you what, I don't think that I need another season of that, unless there's a really good story. And again, every time I've said I don't think I need this particular Star Wars, I've gotten and I've loved it.
It shows up and it's been great. Well, I'll tell you the other reason we need the second season of that is I need more Vivian Lyra Blair as young Leia.
Yep. Oh yeah, I would take that in a heartbeat. And I want to see more of whatever that little boy's name is. I can't remember what it was. Let's see him become Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
So
no doubt.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for the news for us tonight. We are about to be joined in our Force Connect segment with our special guest, Robbie Fox. But before we get to that, we're going to take a real quick break. And when we come back, we'll be joined with Robbie Fox from Barstool Sports and My Mom's Basement. We'll be right back with more ATG Live. Well, welcome back to ATG Live, your Thursday night hangout for all things Star Wars, talking news, conversation, analysis, taking your comments, your voicemails, and also hanging out with special guests. Right now, I'm excited to be bringing in a guy who has been on Around the Galaxy. It was actually a couple years ago. Really great show on My Mom's Basement. He's got a great show on Barstool Sports. So let's get to our guests in this week's Force Connect. Robbie Fox, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you guys? Thanks for having me.
Oh, man. Great. So glad to see you. So glad to be hanging out with you. So, Robbie, like I said, you have been on Around the Galaxy. Dude, I can't believe it's been a couple years. Like, time has flown. It was probably during the height of pandemic. But for people who may not know you, give us a little bit about you.
Yeah, I work for Barstool, as you mentioned. I do a podcast called My Mom's Basement, where we talk about a bunch of nerdy stuff. Star Wars is kind of my main focus. It's my biggest love out there. So talk about that, Marvel stuff. I'm also Barstool's MMA UFC guy. So I cover a lot of fighting as well, music, kind of all around for Barstool. But yeah, I've been working there for 7 years now.
That's amazing. Before I want to just ask a real quick question up front. And it may not be a real quick question. What is the wrestling connection to Star Wars? Because I know you're MMA, but you're also a big wrestling guy too, right?
Huge wrestling.
So I was into WWF back in the 80s, and then I kind of faded out of it. But my feed is full of friends who love Star Wars and they love pro wrestling. What's that connection, dude?
I don't know. I've never even thought about it. Maybe it's just how over the top it is, but we take it very seriously and treat it like Shakespeare, even though we know it's like a little hokey. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that connection is. I think it has to be the flashy over the topness, because especially like looking at 90s wrestling, I'm sure you remember it was all over the top, bright colors. You know, there were characters that looked like they could have been in the cantina.
That's true.
Without a question. And I want to ask a follow-up question to this. It falls into that same, what is with this group of people and Star Wars fans? Because we have a lot of connecting points there. You play bass in a punk band.
Mm-hmm.
Pete and I are both bar band bassists of varying stripes. And we have had literally dozens of other guests on Around the Galaxy over the years. Nick Gambarian from Bayside, Adam Russell from Story of the Year, John Tegg, who's an actor, Arda Ocal, the hockey guy from ESPN, is a bass player. Like, we've had all these different people that are bass players. What do you think it is about Star Wars and bass players that connect on a level?
I mean, you could say maybe John Williams got in all our brains early and made us, fans of music just subconsciously. I think it tells me, I'm sure you've seen everyone sends it to bass players that are Star Wars fans, the Rebel bass picture where it's the money talking bass. Disney needs to mass produce those because clearly there's a lot of us that
we'll all buy one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that about John Williams because, like, that was, for those of us who are Generation X, the guys with the white beards, like, our only access to Star Wars was listening to the soundtrack. And I actually think, like, not only are we bass players, but I think there's a lot of like metal and punk influence. And I'm gonna point that back to Ben's Death and the TIE Fighter Attack. That song was like the first metal song in my brain ever. When it was like it's like, yeah, that's like driving music, man. So
I love that. We could definitely rework that into a breakdown. Yeah. I mean, if the three of us got together, though, it would be full on like Spinal Tap, full bass.
Yes. Just a bass off all the way around.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and you, through Barstool and through your interviews and whatnot, you've spoken to a lot of really cool and interesting people. And in fact, one of my favorite ones is when you talk to speaking of music, Gavin Rossdale from Bush. So cool. It's one of those bands that, like, I don't understand, they kind of faded away, but they're like still there but they had so much influence. But you asked him a great question that I want to ask you, but kind of keep it in the nerdy sense. You asked him about having the opportunity to meet his heroes, and lots of them, and his Bowie answer was really cool. But you've had the opportunity to meet some of your heroes from either whether it's in Star Wars or other fandoms. Which one lived up to all the hype for you the most, or which ones, if there's more than one?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, there's a lot of musicians that I almost place like on this like higher level almost, where I've talked to wrestlers and I've been around wrestlers since I was in high school. I was setting up rings. I was really trying to like get my foot into the business. MMA fighters, I've been interviewing fighters for years now. I'm very like used to it. The occasional like Conor McGregor, of course, has a different aura than the rest of them. That was definitely one of my favorites. That was like a crazy 24-hour notice. UFC hit me up and said, "Hey, we can get you Conor tomorrow if you can get to Las Vegas. We have no time, no idea what time we can get him for you, but just show up in Las Vegas tomorrow and we can get you 10 minutes with him." So I showed up in Vegas tomorrow, got a flight that and I waited around for 9 hours, just like wondering, like it could be any minute. They just kept telling me for 9 hours, it could be any minute. And then at the end of 9 hours, they were like, "All right, here he comes. He's walking down the hall. Be ready." And that I was so nervous for. And he was promoting his whiskey and his forged stout. So he's like, "Oh, take a shot. I'm not really a drinker either." So by the end of the interview, I was empty stomach, 9 hours of not eating anything, really feeling it. But for me, it's usually the musicians. It's like even though they were via Zoom during the pandemic and stuff, Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee, like
wow.
I grew up on my brother telling me like Motley Crue are gods. Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses, Kiss. Like those were the big three in my brother's mind. And then, in my mind because of that. So those two were so crazy because they were also so cool. My favorite band is All Time Low, pop punk band. And like through Barstool, I've gotten to meet them and become friends with them. And they were probably my favorite interview I've ever done because it was like an hour long. We broke down their album and it just felt so good afterwards. So I would say those ones.
Awesome.
That's so fantastic. And it's one of those things like we've talked to, like I said, we've talked to so many people on this show who are bass players and Star Wars fans. We've had conversations with other folks. W. Earl Brown, who played Dan Doherty in Deadwood. He was Tonti in the Book of Boba Fett, the Weequay bartender. And he came on to talk to us about Star Wars. But really quickly early on, something about music came up. I think Pete brought something up about music. Oh, because we had in the intro video what Charlie Benanti from Anthrax. And so he's like, oh yeah, I saw you in the video, Charlie. He was like, I just jammed out with him the other week. And all of a sudden we went down this whole other side path talking about music. And those are those things, whether it's a geeky fandom like Star Wars, a love of wrestling, whether you grew up in the 80s, 90s, now, or something like music, those threads that bond us together as fans of things. And I think that's really cool. And I think what you get to do with your show, have those fun conversations with people that you admire, really pulls out the fandom in that. So the question for me to you, as we are a Star Wars show, you are a Star Wars fan, what is it about Star Wars fandom that kind of separates itself in your eyes from other fandoms out there? You've got everything you can think of: Marvel, Lord of the Rings, Dune, you name it. Everybody has a passionate fan and a passionate following. But what separates Star Wars for you from those other fandoms?
For me, and I'm sure it's the same way for a lot of people, it's the generational family nature of Star Wars. Like, I have so many people in my family that love Star Wars just as much as me. My brother named his firstborn Luke. Like, that's how much we love Star Wars in my family. So it's that. And I'm sure other fandoms will get that along the way. Like Marvel didn't have 40 years worth of legacy. But, I'm sure my kids, I'll pass Marvel down to, and maybe they'll think of Marvel as I think of Star Wars. But I feel like for this generation and the one before my generation, Star Wars is that thing that you share with your family. And that's what separates it for me. Like the rest of it, like Marvel, I share with my friends. DC, I share with my friends. Star Wars is like, let me call up my brother, let me call up my uncles and see what they're doing before I go see the movie without them.
Yeah. How was were they the ones that introduced you to Star Wars when you were younger?
Yeah. My uncles introduced it to my brother. My brother's 12 years older than me. So I always looked up to him as just the coolest guy in the world, still do. And he was introduced to Star Wars in the 90s, the re-release. So that opened his mind to it. He had so many toys from them passed down. Therefore, I had so many toys passed down. And my first memories, I have videos of it on Christmas, are getting like a Power of the Force R2-D2 and like a Stormtrooper, and just like as far back as I could remember, it was just Star Wars in my house always.
Absolutely. Well, I want to ask a follow-up to that question, because we talk about what sets Star Wars apart. The other side of that coin is, what is the common thread in Star Wars and all of these other fandoms? Because there is something that draws us together, because a lot of Star Wars fans are Marvel and DC and Lord of the Rings, and I'll even say it, Star Trek fans. Like, all of these fandoms do tie together. Where do you see that connecting point? What is the thing you think that brings these different things in alignment with each other?
I don't know, because I feel like it's probably changed over the years. Like,
okay,
in my life, being a nerd is like kind of cool. And I don't think it's always been that way. So I think like originally a lot of people probably bonded over like, this is this cool little thing. And then it became, immediately kind of mainstream. So I don't know what it is. That's a good question. I don't know how to answer it though.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because like you said, I can vouch for the fact. Yeah, it was not cool.
Yeah.
To be a Star Wars fan in 1978, 79. We would hang out on the playground and play Star Wars over in the corner while everybody else was playing whatever sport. But it is interesting, because the fandoms that exist now, we do live in a completely different world where, between Disney Plus and Max and Netflix, they're all driven by these nerdy, geeky franchises. So, tell us a little bit about the My Mom's Basement show, because it covers all the different fandoms.
It covers a lot of different stuff, and that's kind of like when I originally thought of it, I was like, I just want it to be like somewhere I can interview, all of my heroes, basically, like somewhere to put interviews and somewhere where I could put all different kinds of interviews. So I kind of said straight from the jump, like, you might not listen to every episode. It might not be a weekly thing like that, but there's going to be something for everybody. There's going to be music interviews. There's going to be actor interviews. There's going to be wrestling talk, MMA talk sometimes. We've kind of offshot the MMA stuff onto its own podcast now. It's called Spin and Backfist. But My Mom's Basement has become just like this nerd hub. So every week we're talking, nerd news. We're recapping. Right now we're going back through all the X-Men movies in the lead up to Deadpool and kind of looking back at the best and worst of them. But it's a really fun show. It's me and my friend Clem from Barstool, and we break down all of it, and we try to stay positive for most of it. Sometimes, they make it hard, but we try.
It's a challenge too, right? I mean, I just did an interview with Rachel Leishman, which is going to drop in our podcast feed in the next week or two. But we talked about how, if like your show is positive. I mean, out of the shows that are out there, there's the positive that's real, which I think is kind of where you're at and where we're at. There's the strangely over positive, and I know that's a weird thing to say. And then of course you have the negative, but I think it's a challenge. Do you find that you need to caveat things sometimes just so that you don't get beat up, or you just like, I don't give a shit?
Definitely, like, because there's the crazy toxic side of the fandom.
Yeah,
you almost need to be like, I promise this is my reasoning for not liking something isn't because I have toxic reasons. Sometimes you just don't like something, and that's fine. But you do feel the need to be like, I promise I'm not one of them.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. Nick, we saw something in the chat you wanted to ask him.
Yes. Lloyd has a question that came up in the chat that we wanted to throw up for Robbie. If he can get that on the screen for us, that would be fantastic. Question from Robbie from Brian. He says, I've tried every decaffeinated brand on the market and all of them are terrible. So was Dave Portnoy Team Biggs or Team Porkins?
Oh, Dave likes big boys. Team Porkins, I would say.
Nice.
Yeah, Dave is proudly like he has two big boys as his trivia partners, and they make their niche snacks and candy all the time, and he is so proud of them. It's unreal. So he has to be Team
That's
Porkins.
fantastic. Yeah, there we go. I love it. And thanks to Brian in the chat for throwing that our way.
Dave is a sneaky big Star Wars fan too, and a Star Wars fan that people don't realize kind of got into it with the sequels. Like, he was always kind of like into he was like, all right, Star Wars is cool. Like, I'm not anti-Star Wars at all. Didn't really like the prequels. And then Force Awakens came around and he became a huge fan.
Wow, that's really cool.
Go ahead, Nick. Did you have another question? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So we talk about all the time, we're in this golden era of Star Wars content, all those kinds of things, Disney Plus, we've got new movies on the horizon that have been announced, stuff starting to go into production. Of everything coming up, what are you most excited for? Obviously, we got an announcement of the Bad Batch coming, just in a couple of weeks. We know we're going to get some Skeleton Crew. We're going to get Acolyte later, maybe this year. What's on your radar? What's kind of pinging your attention? Right
now, I think the things that are like on the forefront of my mind, the Mando movie that just got announced is right up, shot up the draft board because I love Mandalorian so much. And I love Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni's way of Star Wars storytelling and all that. That on the big screen seems awesome to me. Also, Andor season 2. Like, I'm thinking about Andor season 2 constantly because I thought season 1 was phenomenal. And if they can keep that up, I know we're going to get like K2SO in season 2, and they're going to do some time jump stuff. I hope it leads into Rogue One the same way Rogue One leads into A New Hope, where we can just like lead the show into the prequel, into the saga. But yeah, I think like those two. Acolyte, I'm very curious about as well because of kind of the Andor reasoning of like, this seems way different than everything else. And it worked so well with Andor that who knows. Ahsoka season 2, obviously that getting announced and them kind of sliding that under the rug with the Mando announcement. They're like, oh, by the way, season 2 is coming. The fact that they're going Mortis gods with it and getting weird. I'm excited about so much. Even the Rey movie. I'm a huge Daisy Ridley fan as Rey. I think she's awesome. So being able to see that continue, being able to see kind of the saga continue in a weird way. I know it's not episode 10, but it's the main character from the sequel trilogy continuing her story. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, it's hard not to be excited about all of it because again, we can't imagine, fans of a certain age, we can't imagine when we had to wait 3 years between movies, much less we've got to wait 3 months between the end of Ahsoka 2 and we're going to get Bad Batch and then we're going to get another show
forever.
What am I complaining about? I didn't know how good I had it or how good I have it now, but it's hard not to be excited.
One of the things that has been rumored is a What If series, and I'm not necessarily a big fan of What If, but if Robbie's going to write a What If Star Wars story, what's it going to be?
I actually have this locked and loaded, ready to go. I would love to see, what if Han Solo killed Darth Vader on Cloud City? What if he didn't see those shots coming? I know it's crazy to think that with the Force he wouldn't be able to stop that scene coming. What if he was turned around when the door opened? You could explain it away in a what if, I'm sure. I would just like to see how the galaxy goes forward with Han Solo as the leader of the rebellion, savior of the universe. Like, that just seems weird and what ify to me. And it's not just, what if this character, what if Qui-Gon lived and Obi-Wan died or something like that? That would be interesting too, but it's right there on the taking for you.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest. That is never a thought that has ever crossed my mind. And that one's going to fester. I'm going to be thinking about that for a couple of days. That's really good.
That's great.
I'm available for consulting, Disney.
Yeah,
that's right. Get this man in a writer's room.
We know he'll sit in a room for 9 hours and wait. So
that's right.
I'll do it.
Yeah, it's there. It's there.
Do a shot. There was one other question here in the chat that I wanted to hit on. It's from our friend Matt from Enid, Oklahoma, and this is related to the Roadhouse movie. What are your thoughts on the remake? Because it's got that MMA connection. It's got
Connor's in it.
I think it looks awesome. And I know the original is sacred to a lot of people, and a lot of people are like, don't remake it. And I feel like they knew that because they keep calling it like the reimagining, and they're being careful to not call it a remake. I think it looks great though. Like, listen, I get that Roadhouse is a classic, but it's also not like The Godfather. It's like kind of a silly 80s classic, Right. So like remaking it with someone like Jake Gyllenhaal, too. Jake Gyllenhaal rarely misses. He's a great actor. So I feel like that would be great. Like, I know the people.
Matt said it.
Like, shut up! You can't remake Roadhouse.
What kind of a world do we live in where you can't touch Roadhouse? Hey, it was good.
All the movies,
it was fun.
Right? we could do Roadhouse again.
That's right. It totally works.
So okay, let me throw this to you. You could remake an 80s movie. You're a pop culture guy. Give me a remade 80s movie that you're going to remake with today's actors. I know that's really putting you on the spot. You haven't had a chance to write your script and your treatment for it. But, we do talk, like, there are 80s movies that are like, to me, like Better Off Dead. Great freaking movie. Don't try to change that one. But it's going to happen maybe one day.
Who knows, you can't say Red Dawn. They've already done that.
No. And that was not a great idea either.
It wasn't great.
That's a great question. The Warriors? I know it's in the 80s. Is that's 80s, right?
Yeah, that's like early 80s. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. I think you could probably redo that, but you'd have to do it right because the environment and the aura of that movie you would have to nail, obviously, because like that's the best part of it.
Right.
But you could probably, if you cast the hell out of that movie, I bet it'd be great.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I'm going to throw out there as a possibility as well, maybe a little Jewel of the Nile and Romancing the Stone. Let's get those in a remake. Maybe get Chris Evans in that role.
Yeah, down for Chris Evans is anything.
Yeah, get some charisma going. That could be fun. I love those movies as a kid.
So who's gonna be the female lead in that one? I don't know.
That's a great
Brie Larson.
I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Brie, there's lots of ways to go. I am no one. I clearly haven't been hired as a casting person anywhere. So I just come up with the ideas.
Surefire guesses at all times. It's either Chris Pratt or Pedro Pascal at this point.
That's right.
Yep.
Interchangeable parts in some form or another.
I ain't complaining.
I was just saying in that interview I just mentioned with Rachel, like we are in a world where it's no longer 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, it's 6 degrees of Pedro Pascal.
Yeah,
because I think
absolutely
he's everywhere.
Yeah,
he's
I've been rewatching
special children through like post-apocalyptic worlds.
That's right. I've been rewatching Game of Thrones recently, and just yesterday I watched that episode. So it was a little bit, a little bit of tug on the heartstring, and then I remembered, oh yeah, Pedro's everywhere else. We're fine.
Yeah.
Well, Robbie, this has been such a fun conversation. We can't thank you enough for hanging out with us tonight. Before we get you out of here, where can everybody find you? What do you want everybody to know that you've got coming up?
Yeah, My Mom's Basement on wherever you could find podcasts, or YouTube, or Rumble, wherever you could get shows. Twitter, I'm at Robbie Barstool. Instagram, I'm at that Robbie Fox. And the band that I'm in is called Pup Punk. We've got like social handles and stuff. It's Pup Punk Rocks, but we spell Rocks RAWX because Rocks was taken already. So we had to, punkify it a little. But we're gonna like do a little mini tour this year. So
awesome.
Look out for it. It's gonna be fun.
That's fantastic. Well, keep us in the loop on the tour. We'll make sure to post your dates and let everybody know about it. And but this has been a blast, man. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We'd love to have you back sometime.
Yeah, thank you guys.
All the best, and keep listening to My Mom's Basement because it's like we said, it's everything. Everything. It's great. It's a lot of fun.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, we'll be right back with more ATG Live.
The coolest thing for me is there are two characters who I consider classic characters, Zuckus and 4LOM, who apparently that's how you pronounce it because I've been admonished.
4LOM.
4LOM. Yes.
So that's it. That's the official. I just want to be clear because I've been saying 4LOM for 40 years.
I've been saying 4LOM since I got the action figures wrong. That's how long it's been since I said. No, it's 4LOM, and the reason why is you say things phonetically, like C3PO, so that people know how it's spelled. Like that's the reason. So,
is it for you? Is it AT-AT or AT-AT? Let's settle this.
Oh my God, this is. Can I just say that Han shot first? That's
okay.
You absolutely can.
Well, welcome back to ATG Live, your Thursday night hangout for all things Star Wars, for news, conversations. Hope you had fun with Robbie Fox. We sure did. Seriously, check out My Mom's Basement. If you love Star Wars talk like us, with us, you can hang out with us for Star Wars. And that's about kind of sometimes where we end up. Go to My Mom's Basement and get everything else and the music stuff. Seriously, if you're he's got that interest in that same era of music that we're into. So I think it'll work out really well for him for you to check that out. But we have some messages that have come through. So let's hit intercepted transmissions.
Where are those transmissions you intercepted?
Producer Lloyd, how you doing?
Director Pete.
Director Krennic, please.
You have a great many things to explain.
I tend to believe that's probably true. So, did we get any interesting or fun comments? I'm sure we did. We got a ton of comments. I've been looking. And by the way, if you're watching, don't forget, get us over 900 subscribers.
Oh, we got there.
Oh, we did. Okay, good.
We got there. Here it is right here. Striker ATC 900 sub. Let's go.
All right. Leave a comment.
I was saving that for a special occasion.
Sorry, Pete. Sorry, Lloyd. He brought it up.
It's all me. It's all me. Director Pete. Director Krennic brought it up.
Choke on your aspirations.
So, do we want to start with comments, or do you want to start with a phone call? I'll leave that to you as the producer.
I think we're just gonna keep to tradition here, and we're gonna kick off with the voicemails.
All right.
Because one of them is kind of long. So, the first one is from Eric.
Yo, it's the Cloudfather, Eric. I was wondering if there was an experience with Star Wars that you actively think made you a better person. Best of wishes to the SSW network on the rebranded Force Connect.
Wow.
That's an interesting question. It's a Star Wars experience that made you a better person. Yeah, I'll put it out there. I think Podathon. I see it on your shirt. Podathon. We've done 3 of them. We've got a 4th one coming May the 4th. Honestly, we can say safely and really We did not plant that call. That is absolutely perfect. Podathon will be May the 4th this year, and we have raised over $30,000 for Make-A-Wish over a couple of years, over 3 years of doing it. So I think that's doesn't make me a better person, but it makes me feel better about fandom and the community. And if we make something better for those kids as a result of, doing a fun full day of Star Wars conversation, I would say that works for me. What about you guys?
Yeah, without a doubt. I'll jump in. And when I first heard this voicemail, I thought, I don't know if I have an answer to that, but then it just clicked. And right away, for me, it is as a dad of 4 daughters, and I've said this more times than I can count, it is the Luke Yoda moment in Last Jedi, when they're sitting on the log, when they're talking about Rey and the burden of a master, and when Yoda says, we are what they grow beyond. I don't know that made me a better person, but that struck me so much as a father in the core of who I am, to what I have always wanted with my kids is I want them to be better than I have been in my life. I want to set them up on a path that is kind, that is loving, that reaches out to the world, that is embracing of, everyone who needs love and needs acceptance. And that's really the goal. Like, I want my parents wanted me to be better than them. I want my kids to be better than me. And the brilliance of Rian Johnson, the brilliance in that movie, on so many levels, that is the thing. I don't think it made me a better person. So that's not necessarily the answer to Eric's question, but that's the closest that I think I can come. Is it makes me conscious to want to continue to try and enable my kids to be better than me.
Well, that's really cool. That's an important thing for sure. Lloyd, anything on your side?
I think it would just be the messaging behind the rebellion that speaks the most to me. Like, for me, it's more of just, it takes everybody kind of working together to make something better, not just the people you agree with, because the rebellion doesn't even agree with each other. But they're still able to accomplish, a lot. And it just kind of made me, as a person, step back and analyze something a little bit more, be patient, Now, don't get me wrong, I'll shove a proton torpedo up someone's exhaust port. I don't have a problem doing that, but I'm not gonna. Yeah, I mean, it takes everyone to build something better.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, speaking of building and better, I don't know what the connection is here, but let's hit that other voicemail, and then I'm not good at transition sometimes. It's true. I'll admit it.
This, okay, it's Matt. Kind of know what we're getting. Probably a grocery store. All right. So.
Hey, fellas. This is Matthew, Matt and Enid. Hey, I guess my new hobby is randomly walking around when I go to the store and places and asking people about Star Wars. So I decided to try it again. I was in Subway waiting in line, and there was a little old lady right in front of me. So I asked her, I said, what do you know about Star Wars? Do you like Star Wars? And she looked at me, and I said, what do you think? And she goes, no, I don't like Star Wars. I said, why don't you like Star Wars? She said, because it's unrealistic, uneducational, and gets you bad ideas. I said, okay. Her name was Betty. So I asked Betty, I said, Betty, what's a show that is realistic and gives people great ideas and it's good for people? And she said, the Andy Griffith Show. So take that for what you will. I asked another guy when I was in the grocery store, again, different guy, what he knew about Star Wars or what his favorite character was. And he said, well, the only one I really know is that guy Darth Vader. And I said, well, Darth Vader? He goes, no, Darth Vader. So evidently he likes Darth Vader. I'm going to try again this week and see what they say, but I'll be listening on Thursday. Bye.
I just want it to be clear, I did not listen to that before just now.
Well, I kind of, I feel like we're like developing this sort of man on the street by accident thing. I love that Matt is talking to people in the grocery store. And here's the thing. The reason I love these questions and these comments is we forget we are on Twitter. We're talking Star Wars with people who live, die, eat, drink, breathe Star Wars. The vast majority of Star Wars fans are the people in the grocery store in Enid with Matt. So I love that.
And here's what I love about it as well, is it has pivoted already just in a few short weeks from like Matt saw another guy wearing a Star Wars shirt, and he asked him to randomly asking like little old ladies in Subway, or like it doesn't even matter if there's a connection. He's just like, "Hey, you, what do you think about Star Wars?" Like this is the reality show that I didn't know 2024 needed to give me, but I am here for it.
I think we're gonna have to give him a recorder and a microphone and let him walk around and pull this stuff.
So what did we from Enid? I mean,
tales from Enid, man. What did we get in the chat tonight?
So they were kind of a mixed bag, right? So I'm going to do my best to kind of remember the context for each one. But first off, we had Stephen Kent came by. He said, best time I had at Galaxy's Edge was sitting in the cantina. I definitely relate to that. And I think that was when you were talking about, like, I just kind of want to relax. Like if I'm spending that much money, you know, and I think that's what brought a lot of people away from it. It's a completely curated thing. You don't have time. You just want to, you know, spend all that money. You want to do what you want to do, but you can't do that.
Oga's Cantina is really cool, but that's also a timed experience. So I think that is one of those things that would be, so if I could sit at the bar in my hotel with a Biff band playing some Jats music, I'm there. I'm all for it. So what do we got?
Yep. Where'd my cursor go? There it is. Okay. So, oops. Second one up is from TW McKay. I think if we see Anakin again in Ahsoka season 2, I'd like to see Ewan McGregor made up to be older Obi-Wan as a Force ghost.
Ooh.
Wow. Older Ewan McGregor as Alec Guinness as Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Now they did a comparison about 10 years ago that they compared Guinness's face to McGregor's face. And they're almost identical.
Really?
They compared it. I guess there's like a sweet spot. It's like right about here on somebody's face, where if they match up, you can do it, and they match perfectly.
That's outstanding.
I think I could take that.
So, I'm here for it. I wouldn't be mad at it, and especially he's here. It's not like this isn't a Peter Cushing situation. This isn't a Carrie Fisher situation. This is he's here. He's an asset, much like Mark Hamill did with the stand-in that season 2 of Mandalorian. I think there's a way that they could do something. I hadn't considered that. Again, I'm getting all these new thoughts this week in the show, but
it's a Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones just reversed.
But going the other way. I mean, all the tools are on the table. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. Another one for the Galaxy's Edge. That one definitely hit this week, I think.
Yeah.
Benny said, I just love the whole atmosphere of Galaxy's Edge. And I remember when I went, I didn't want to leave. And then I saw the hotel and I was like, I don't want to go. So that one, I think this story in particular hit for a lot of people this week.
Yeah, I'd love to see something there for sure.
Yeah, that's cool.
And this is when I was going to break it to you. Okay.
Yay, 900 subs. Thank you. Wow, Lloyd, we hit 900.
And then these two were brought up for Robbie's little segment there from Brian. Wrestling plus Star Wars equals awesome and suspension of disbelief. And I think that's where the connection is.
Yeah, I think so too. It is over the top. It's villains and heroes. It's clear, black and white with the twist, right? Again, I'm not a huge wrestling guy, but I do know that every now and then Twitter blows up when people say, this guy did that. I can't believe it. And that's cool. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And then from Jasmine, wrestling has backstories, alliances, coups, deaths, resurrections, distinct costumes. Like the connections kind of can keep going. So I think that's why it resonates
Star Wars
with a lot
all
of
the
people.
time.
Yeah. Yep.
For sure.
And that's pretty much it.
All right. Week. That's it. That's all right. That's good. We had a lot of fun with Robbie. We had a lot of fun going through the news tonight. This week, you saw we have Ethan Sachs is in the podcast stream. Next week, Rachel Leishman will be joining us on Around the Galaxy. We recorded with her this past week. She is from the Mary Sue. Really fun conversation. Great to get her perspective. And while we're at it, Lloyd, you have a Twitch channel. Where can people find you?
Oh, wow. I wasn't expecting that. Okay. Yeah, so you can find me over at twitch.tv/angrytastycakes.
There you go.
Yeah, if you want to hear me rage at Call of Duty at all hours of the night, I'm your dude.
That's awesome.
You should. It's totally worth it.
Is it?
Good. Yeah, it's fun.
I have a good time hanging out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
I tune in and I just lob random crap at you while you're blowing up news.
And then you disappear when I try to talk, and then
yeah,
it's
I
fine.
ask a question, Lloyd answers it, but I've already left because real life happened.
Well,
My
that's
favorite
great.
game.
Well, I want to thank everybody who joined us in the chat, everybody who was hanging out with us tonight. We had a great time. We will see you next week. Who's our guest next week? Nick, I'm literally asking because I can't remember. I know the calendar exists and I just can't remember who's on it. And now I'm going to put it on you to remember.
Yeah, that's okay, because you know what? We are a team here. We figure these things out together. And sometimes while we're talking to each other, while we're looking deeply into each other's eyes, that's when I'm pulling up the spreadsheet. And you know what? Be excited if you love comic books, if you love a million things. I mean, speaking of comic books, Brian and Jasmine are in the chat. I'm just going to take this quick moment of personal privilege. This giant Marvel special edition Star Wars comic book, amazing gift from a friend. The one and only Heather Antos is going to be with us next week.
What?
Talking Star Wars.
Next
talking
week is
comic
Heather?
books.
Oh, man, I'm definitely coming back. I was going to take next
you should
week
be
off,
here.
but
I'll be here too.
Well, excellent. Well, hey, we want to thank everybody for hanging out with us. This was a blast. Make sure to hit subscribe. Make sure to like. Make sure to share. If you had fun, if you're enjoying this show on Thursday nights, tell somebody about it. It helps us out. And that's all I can ask. Thank you for subscribing. And Nick, may the force be with you.
Always.
Just one more round, friend, then homeward bound, friend. Don't forget me in your dreams. Just one more song, friend, and then so long, friend. The nights get shorter, it seems. Just one more rhyme, friend. Yes, it's a crime, friend. But you know time, friend, time can fly. So it's good night, friend. Good night, but not goodbye.